Are you one of the select few that can do this on game capture?
Yeah. I don't have any issues. I've already gone through that trial and error.
Oh yeah. Got my lights all set up. We're good to go.
God.
Man.
What the?
What's up?
Why am I? What did you see that guy?
Why is
that-
it coming out like this?
What you see that guy?
What guy? What happened to you?
Alright, squad.
Yeah, just so you know, if you zoom down the scopes, they see your laser.
Okay, I gotcha.
So, your FL.
No, I don't know where to go.
I don't either. Is this just like TDM?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So we want to kind of find a place to kind of camp out, as in just stake out and just make sure no one comes in the area. But for right now, we can just run and be crazy.
Oh yeah.
Don't run, because they can hear you running.
Ah.
Yes. It must be
Real sneaky like, huh?
Snake. Snake.
I'm a snaky snake.
Is it like? Oh, it's team deathmatch.
Yeah.
Oh, this is dope.
Oh, freak! Above you guys. So behind. They pretty much went up and we
Got
went
him.
down.
They got us from behind?
Nice. Yes.
This is dope. It's like freaking realistic,
it's
but
like
it's also
real life.
NVG.
Ah!
Oh,
that.
friggin' neck.
Where was he?
I don't know. There's no map. I gotta be the worst Marine ever.
Oh, freak.
Ah! Contact!
Oh, they got a UAV?
Ah!
You can't
He's trying to knife me! Ah!
You can't just scream.
God.
Oh, you
Tell me
fucking.
where they're at.
God.
Hey, stop yelling so much, alright? I'm trying to focus on the game.
Scaring the shit out of me. Oh, look at all these dead bodies.
It's a game of silence.
Damn, I'm the best, dude.
We don't particularly want to be in the middle. We got enemy right here. You can also not tell if they're dead, really.
I love this so much.
It's like a realistic mode, but with NVGs.
Ah! Yeah, he's
Second story.
he's there.
Oh wait, no, yes, that's you. What?
Yeah, dude, look above their head.
Oh, I love this. I love this so much.
I get so stressed out. I don't play mini games.
Oh, I got killed from the side building
Yep.
in front of the
Oh,
ramp
somebody's
area.
knifing somebody. Got him?
Call out them being knifed.
Yeah.
Smoke.
Guy on you, Zenith. Guy on you, Zenith.
On me? I'm not next to you.
Oh. Well, that guy's definitely dead.
Enemy VTOL in the AO.
They have a VTOL.
Yeah. Oh, freak! I just used my UAV too.
Alright, I'm coming back. August, I'm on you.
Yes. Heartbeat sensor.
Alright, we're gonna head
You
up.
guys got stun grenades?
I think I have a Molotov.
I have stuns. I have flashes, actually. Ah, ah,
Damn.
Oh, I just got knifed because I wasn't paying attention.
Someone got knifed right below me.
Yeah, that was me, if probably.
I heard your like gut splatter on the ground.
ah.
Yeah, I could hear the replay.
Okay. I'm gonna catch a view of the second story of this building, Shank?
There's a guy in there, I think. Yeah, there's a guy on the other side. Got him.
Nice.
Oh,
I
forgot
just
to
got
refill
pulsed
salt
or
there.
something. Oh, damn. Oh, he's on the stairs?
Got him.
Nice. Good looks.
I'm gonna die, probably.
Nah, fam. Not on my watch. Just kidding. If he comes up that stairs, though, he's gonna die on my watch.
Okay.
Got him.
Guys across.
Where are you guys, anyways?
Got one guy.
We're camped out in the building.
Ooh. He's across that little bridge area.
Yeah, I just got
Up
shot
top.
down.
Okay. Got him.
UAV overhead.
Oh, damn, he had a shotty.
Got that guy.
I'm trying to squad back up.
Yeah, where you at?
I'm going to tie
Okay, y'all
right now.
are there. I'm on you guys as well.
Oh, there he is.
Fuck. I gave you guys this position away. You guys are just kind of rushing around. It's crazy.
Ah, unfortunate.
Ah, he fucking saw me, douchebag. Like reloaded and saw me.
Just your ass. One down.
UAV overhead. Enemy in the courtyard.
Two down.
It's over here calling body counts.
Well, we're all in the same area, aren't we?
Ah,
Yeah.
Oh, shit. In the building, in the building. Right underneath the salon sign.
I can't figure out how to get back.
Alright, Shank, I'm right behind you. There.
I'm gonna go up this ladder.
Enemy personal radar in the air.
Alright,
I like how you double checked to make sure it was me.
That was
Like
I
you had
couldn't
been
really-
dead already.
Ah, he came up.
I got him.
oh, he just tumbled down the stairs.
Save
Alright,
my
we got
body.
someone on the far right side of the
Take it to
courtyard.
my family.
I think he's down. Looks like he's down.
Far side.
I see.
Oh,
Yeah.
fuck.
Second story.
I missed all my shots until I hit them, and then they knew where I was.
Enemy personal
Sounds like
Bro,
one
I'm getting
behind us.
wrecked.
Yeah, nice try, bud.
enemy care package inbound.
I can't seem to get back to you guys.
I'm on the same building.
Ah. What was
Keeping
that?
point. I think this.
Oh, you freaking kidding me.
Damn, he got me. I wasn't watching my six. Alright, I think that's gonna
What
be
is
like our
this
main
thing?
group up spot there on
What are
by
you
that building.
doing?
Where we were.
I don't know what he's doing.
Damn it.
He's gonna get us killed.
I spawned right into him.
Oh,
Where? You guys just chilling here?
no,
Right
I'm not.
now.
I'm trying to go upstairs.
Damn.
This fucking guy. Guy up there.
Oh, damn.
Don't peek it.
Looked at the corridor far. From where we were, anyways. Oh,
Right there up top, up top.
They got a sentry gun on that courtyard.
Dude, put your gun away, man. You're
Die.
flashing the whole courtyard.
Damn.
You dead, bro?
He's in the second story. On the far right side, right next to you, Ty.
Yeah, yeah.
At least he was.
Going up. There he is.
Inbound. Take cover.
Whoops.
Oh!
On the second story.
Don't go outside, don't go outside. They're gonna
Oh, God,
heli
yeah,
or
right
something.
side. On the top floor.
Enemy personal radar in the air.
Alright, I'm back there. Running out like a monkey.
Enemy at the bridge.
Alright, I'm taking the right side of the top story.
I got left.
One down on the right side.
Time's up. Get
Oh, behind you.
Good call.
Yeah,
good
he's
call.
falling. Yeah, he fucking knifed me.
I heard
Stemming
him
up.
coming up too.
That's
Getting
good.
his knife ready for me.
I was more worried what you were
That was fun
saying.
though, dude. I like that.
That was pretty sick.
the loss. Adapt or die.
If you
I
else
enjoyed
we
it.
can though. Or if
No,
you're
that's
staying
fine.
NVG, I'm
Do
down.
one more.
Let's do MG.
All that accuracy.
If you change the stream information halfway through the stream, is it gonna update or is it gonna start a new stream with a new title?
It just updates.
It just updates it. Hell yeah.
Considered they're kind of
God, encoder error.
considered two
Yeah,
different
while
my shit
streaming.
just- yeah, my shit just fucking died.
crash.
Yeah. Our shit just trashed at the same time.
Yeah, mine did too.
No, I'm the only one that's okay right now.
God damn it, Ty.
Been through all this, so I was trying to help out.
Does it say streaming error? Is that what it says?
Encoder error, yeah.
Drivers? Yeah. What the fuck? It must just be fucking COD, bro.
Finally unlocked. Tiger stripes. Special. COD does a lot right now. I was trying to message Zenith. One person was hitting OBS. They're like, "Hey, I'm having issues with COD." They're like, "Well, COD's a new game. And we haven't actually got our encoders to run it at the optimal level yet, so you're gonna have to wait." I was like,
Yeah.
great.
How's everybody else
the-
do it though?
You just play around with the settings, your graphic settings and everything, and then, like my case, like my COD kept crashing every time I tried to stream because I was turned off the DirectX, and the DirectX would come up with the error, and it would just crash, and I'd be like, all right, well, I turned it back on, and then didn't have any issues at that point.
I don't have any COD issues, but like my stream is just crashing when I play it.
Okay. So, what studio are you using? What
I'm
system?
using Streamlabs.
Using Streamlabs?
Hmm.
You could try running as administrator if you haven't tried that already. That's a huge thing that you've noticed that helps with it. So if you can close out, go into your control panel, or just in your taskbar hit OBS or Streamlabs.
Mhm.
Then you can right click on it and it'll give you an option to run as administrator, and they'll give it priority over the COD game, and then you can
Okay.
actually run your stream. That might
We'll
work.
see if I can use a good old fashioned controller here. Maybe not.
I was using controller, but my freaking thumb hurts after like a couple hours of playing. So
Jeez. How do you
keyboard's so much-
permanently switch over to a controller?
There's a setting on there.
If you go to the settings, you can go to general, and it shows
Yeah.
input, and then you can click that as your.
Ah. So it says controller, but I'm not completely sure that it's working that way.
You have your controller plugged into your computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should be fine. Unless there's some bug or something you got.
Seems like there might be a bug. Oh well, I'll use
What?
mouse for this one.
You could also just have to restart your game, maybe.
Might in a little bit.
Team deathmatch.
Oh hell yeah, big caves day, boys.
Time to hunt.
I see lasers.
Shit.
Died already?
Got
Why
cave.
can I not see him?
Roll.
My.
They're
Damn.
gonna come from both directions here.
Enemies in the area. Following you.
Fuck. Oh, damn it.
there's a guy in the room. Once you leave the cave in the room, there's 2 guys in there.
Oh, sweet. Love those guys.
In the house.
On the enemy spawn of the map?
On our spawn. The house right here to his left. There's 2 guys in there.
Damn, I got flattened out.
Oh, get fucked, kid. Now I'm gonna fuck your friend real quick.
This is actually a family-friendly stream, so I'm
Adam?
gonna have to ask you to refrain from using profane language.
Oh, freak, he's to the left on the door.
Almost.
Using a shotgun.
Well, I did shoot you, August.
Yeah, I felt it. It hurt.
Ooh.
Tracker fire! That's what you hear him say.
On our side of the
there's another guy?
cave's entrance. He's in that far building. Or in the close building, rather. I'm terrible with callouts, dude.
Especially when there's no map. Ah! I just exploded.
Alright.
I'm at one place for the door.
Oh, behind you! Son of a... You running around and jumping out windows and crap. And I was already fucking died.
I see you.
Bro, people's reaction time is like 30 times mine.
Yeah, there's a guy running around with a shotty. Shotty in the dark. Alright, time on you.
Cool.
Second story.
Nice. Watch the cave.
Guy across, outside the door.
Yeah.
Yep. Just 2 of them in the cave mouth. That's the name of the place. Cave mouth. Mouth of the cave.
Damn, they breached our building.
Oh, just missed. Killed him, nice. Oh, what the fuck? He came out of nowhere. What the fuck?
Ah, why'd I peek that? That was a dumb peek.
Oh, you freaking kidding me? I shot him in the face.
Alright, Shank, I'm on you.
Behind you too. I'm going left though. Footsteps are so fucking. Jump the wall, dude.
Alright, there's a guy second story of that building up there.
Yep.
Oh shit, behind.
Oh,
Got him.
figures.
Enemy at the center.
Alright, time spotting behind you. I got you in my sights.
Scared the
And
crap
Shank.
out of me. That's what happens.
Good.
Oof. Hey, got one way far.
Yeah, second story on the building across from the pathway from you guys. The road, rather.
There's a guy inside that little head room right there.
Yeah, to the right of you, yeah.
Got him.
Cave right now.
Damn, I don't know how he
He's
got
envy
me.
cave.
Damn. Okay. Okay. Healed up.
Got that guy in front of you guys.
And luck. Teammates are fucking stupid.
Enemy at the tower.
Damn, saw that one coming from a mile away. I'm seeing
Yeah.
lasers from the left side of this cave.
Enemy at the crossroads.
Watch out behind you, August. Might come from that way.
Okay. I'm gonna flank around then.
Damn, right side.
They're definitely inside this building.
Oh wow, just fell off the map. Okay.
Yeah, you gotta watch that bridge.
Got to him.
Sweet. Oh, you freaking kidding me? How can people see clearly? No, he just freaking ran it everywhere.
It's got sniped.
They're in the tunnel. Watch out for your right side. Your
Right side tunnel.
4 o'clock.
Yep. One down. Damn, one's still in the main entry. Or in the main section of the tunnel.
Oh, fuck. Ah.
There's people
Sniper.
around
Where'd
me.
that happen?
Yeah, there's always people on both sides.
Damn, he's coming up the ramp by the houses. On our spawn.
Hostiles in the area.
Oh, you kidding me? What gun is he using? He's using the.
Hostiles in the area.
Damn, you want to run that by me again, Bob?
Ammo.
Enemy at the fob.
Oh. That's what I get for talking shit.
Got him.
Target spotted.
Freaking die, dude. I'm fucking done with you.
Damn, he saw me. Same ramp by the same house. Our sound.
Target spotted.
Oh, I almost had him.
Ooh.
Hey, Majama, how's it going?
I keep running in like a
Majama appears. I'm so into the game, I didn't even notice. Oh! Majama probably stopped in for like a second. No, he's probably lurking. Maybe. So much going on right now.
Damn.
I didn't even expect anyone to hop on. Majamas. Oh, they're in the village.
Hey, he was directly behind me.
We're low on time.
Yeah. I literally ran into him.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even check to see how loud you guys are on my stream. Forgot about that.
Enemy at the bridge.
Do you have Discord set up as a separate audio source, Ty?
Yeah, I think so.
That's what
I
I
had to
need.
double check. Talk real quick.
Test test 1 2 check check check. Your mom.
Enemy cruise missile incoming.
Should be good.
Contact.
Haven't turned you down. Oh, kidding me. Spawn me like right in a mix of all of them. Ah, there's one in the cave.
Damn.
Lost.
Stand down.
Alright, I'm down to play something else. I'm tired of seeing green.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I told you like a couple maps or a couple matches. Yeah. I just hate it because I have the habit of going around corners and peeping around. Well, you can't peep in this like that, without giving your position away. So.
Oh, finally got an optic on this bad boy.
Nice.
I not the? Oh wait, no. Here, we'll leave that. Okay, cool. All right, what are we thinking?
Down for domination if you want to get more XP, but otherwise,
Where is? How do you get to get domination? Small team.
so you go to hover over quick play. To the right of it, it'll say filter. Click on the filter,
Ah,
and then you can click on all the games you do or do not want. Ugh.
Okay, cool. So that'll just search for a round of domination. That's kind of dope.
It keeps kicking me on my loadout because you keep switching things. It's not your fault.
Because
It's
I keep
just
changing the game.
mad at the yeah. Oh, why? Kill me.
I don't know why I have a swing flag checked as my thing. I think I was watching too much PewDiePie. How do I see the new ones?
See the new ones?
Oh, it's up. Okay. Calling cards.
Gotcha. I haven't even checked mine in a while. Oh. German drama if he hops in
Figuring
again.
out how to actually stream a new game is the best. Oh, I didn't attach a scope to my freaking thing. Or a sight to it, rather. Damn, still rocking the fire.
Scope sight. We all know what you meant.
Domination.
H2O lean, same thing.
Capture and defend the objectives.
For everybody in Chenge.
Oh, shite.
Why did we hop in the game midway? Sucks.
No idea.
We're taking Charlie.
Ah!
Be advised. Friendly precision
Oh fuck! He took you out, August, and then like I just
Yeah,
looked and was like, oh,
I thought he was a different. I thought he was on our team.
Oh, God, I kept
oh hell no! Really? It just spawned me right in front of him. Oh man, this is why I have a heart.
Got him. Oh, someone's got me. There must be a lot of people in the match.
Ah, bro, what? These spawns are broken.
Yeah, hella broken.
Instantly in 6 different sight lines. That's cool.
Yeah. Oh, you freaking kidding me? Come on. Look at. Better not
Yes.
wreck my.
Okay. Would be a good idea to start doing.
We're taking Alpha.
Oh, frick, come on. Seriously?
I like how you can just drop shot like that. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, I freaking hate it though. Man, they are everywhere.
God.
They are
Oh, I ran out of ammo.
everywhere.
Where the
This
hell-
is the worst Dom I've been in for a while.
Oh, God. Damn, he just beat my shit in.
We've got 2 objectives. Lock it down.
I kind of.
How do we even have 2 objectives? What's that?
Stand by.
What's up?
I was asking what you were talking about.
Hostiles are taking
There's a guy in A.
We've lost Bravo.
When do we?
Okay, now we flip the spawns again. I don't understand.
That's how it does it, bro.
Losing Alpha.
What's not spawning in front of people and having them kill me?
Enemy UAV overhead.
Alright, Captain B.
We're taking Bravo.
My God. Where am I supposed to go?
Nice. We got B.
Are you freaking kidding me? Oh, I can't hit for shit right now. Aim for banana. Banana brain right now.
I spawned and instantly heard contact.
Bro, this guy.
Yeah.
We're all spawning in the same spot.
That's the
You're not
best.
my teammate. Don't spawn with me. Bro,
Dude, they need to fix it so that if you're even
Oh my
like
God.
a
Yogi.
10
Materialize.
feet.
spawn in the middle of the map. My God.
It's a
What is
freaking
going on?
circus, dude.
Securing Charlie. Enemy UAV overhead.
I took Alpha. Need some help.
I guess.
You've lost the lead, soldier.
Oh, we got. Oh, damn.
We're holding Alpha.
Hopefully I can live longer than 5 seconds.
Oh fuck. Oh, it's you, August.
It's me.
Jeez. I saw red for a second. I swear.
Ah!
Bravo, stand by.
Oh, seriously?
Bro, we have VTOL. Are you serious?
I have no idea what any of the kill streaks are in this game yet.
It's a little thing that hovers over and just melts you.
You're telling me he killed.
It's a fancy aircraft.
Okay, kill streak.
I finally got a kill.
Congrats. You're now a player of the game.
My god.
Doing better than I am at the moment. Ah, you freaking kidding me?
Jeez, 4 and 12. Latency?
Hey,
What the hell is latency?
dude, it's called lag.
Oh god.
I should have died there.
Damn. Trying to get used to drop shotting people.
My god.
Yeah,
Man's
I
a
know what's
legend.
going.
I gotta stop running out. I gotta play this like I played
Spawn
Tarkov.
die. Spawn die!
Yep, exactly. We play Tarkov.
Oh jeez.
You kidding me?
Came out of nowhere, running at me like a monkey.
Can I close this garage door?
Oh, he shotgunned the hell out of me.
You gotta be careful from the very beginning, dude. This is nuts.
Right.
I'm a stream. I forgot they had freaking airstrike coming in. Well, it was nice knowing you guys. It's been fun. This is the worst domination game I've been in.
Yeah, it's
They
just.
have
We might
better.
as well just forfeit. I
Upset.
get a kill and then die every single time.
Eee, you got 2 kills for 1. That's messed up. Yeah. I think I'm just tilted in the moment, so
Second too.
not gonna get anything.
Dude, he's busting him out in his sleep right now. My room stinks. He's homeboy's hotboxing it with his farts.
Yeah.
Oh, my
that's-
puppy has the worst heart, bro.
Thanks for the assist on capturing.
We got a guy on the rooftop. Never mind, he jumped down. He's coming to see. Charlie's getting capped.
Enemy UAV overhead.
I got it. I just don't want to die for another 20 minutes.
That'd be nice. Oh, great. Of course he pops up after a thermite grenade.
Bro, she's the best.
I'll start throwing grenades everywhere. These ones don't work very well. I'm using the Semtex. Like, oh, you meant a certain time. It's time to fucking... Nice. Rooftop. Oh, nice. You guys called them out already.
Oh, good lord.
What's up?
Alright, well, heading to Alpha.
How?
Oh, jeez. I want to say west side of Bravo.
Bro, the only
guess-
flags I've been able to cap are our spawn flags this whole game.
Great.
Got it?
Run.
We're gonna make a comeback or what?
Nope.
Think so?
instantly
Oh,
knew
we
I was
hope
there
he-
from the spawn.
Oh, are you freaking kidding me? Who shot me? He followed me, and I didn't even see him. I looked back, and he wasn't there. But look at my ass.
There's no cars.
what?
Like,
All that matters.
ha, I got him with Claymore.
Sweet.
Are you guys both camped out in this building right now?
I'm camped out right here on this spot right here, trying to defend B. Oh, we might be able to make a comeback.
Alright, I'm coming over to whoever's in this building. Oh, never mind.
friendly
There's like 4
people?
people upstairs. One coming down the staircase.
Which building are you in right now, dude? You over by A or C?
Flag.
Oh, yep. He's on the gate side of that.
Loss is imminent.
Ah, man.
Well, there's gates on both sides. Never mind.
Better come back.
Oh, I forgot it
Like-
tells you where you're at the top. Ay, ay, ay.
We came back quite a bit though.
Yeah, it was nice. How the fuck we pulled that off, I don't know,
Jeez
but
Louise.
oof. Watch them get annihilated.
I'm cornered.
Hey, you guys are spawning at C, but no one's capturing C.
What?
I just watched our own guys run away from C, but C was still captured by the enemy.
Well, the other team's base.
Yeah.
This guy's a goddamn war hero.
Yep.
This guy's a goddamn-
You get to play a game.
Jesus.
I'm freaking dying.
Flipping and spinning and
48 and 13. Are you shitting me?
sheesh. Alright, you beat the game.
Not good enough. It's kept spawn killing like shit out of everybody.
Bro,
Yeah, look, I'd
the
be
spawn
dead.
was like in the middle of the map. It was the worst. No
Say
clue.
that again.
I wish I could take a picture of this, but it's so dark in here. Kanye's literally cuddling his chew toy right now. Shit's real cute.
I would die for you.
Look. Guys talk.
Hello.
Test, test, 1, 2. Check, check, check. Check, 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 1, 2. Test, test.
Peter
Check, check,
Piper
check,
picked a
check, check.
pack of pickled pepper. Peter Piper picked a patch of.
Interesting.
Peter Piper
Alright,
picked
you
a
guys are good.
Pickled pumpkin patch. I didn't put my sight on my weapon again.
Ah,
What am I doing?
garbage.
Nothing.
You're the worst army man ever.
Garbage.
It's okay. You guys are doing better than I am, and I've been playing
Hey Alexa, play Desert
so
Music.
much. Weirdest thing.
On his desert music. Alexa could be really racist right now.
Oh God.
He's really racist. Didn't you know this?
Ah, there's a guy up top,
Up top where?
left of our spawn.
Ooh.
The only way you can get up.
Yay.
Pretty
Okay.
sure. My God, are we playing the same guy? Are we playing the same guys? People are
Hopefully
trick-shotting
not.
me and-
People are trick shotting happy modders. Alright, I kept
Jesus.
You playing controller?
kept C.
Oh, I didn't get in here
Mouse.
soon enough.
Alright, got a camper up
Mike,
there.
what was he doing? How did you
Playing.
see him?
Playing with the dirt, I don't know.
Like a salamander.
Why was he
Adapting
like
to
a
his
salamander?
surroundings.
You get a chameleon, maybe?
Yeah, hey, chameleon.
Like a salamander.
He's just hiding.
God,
Slithery.
God, God.
You're a weasel snake. Ah! Okay.
Dear, dear Jesus.
Fucking right in front of me. How the hell? Oh no, he climbed up this ladder.
Dear Jesus.
Dear,
I picked the one time to freaking
I wish you guys
reload
would
my
know when you
weapon.
got these.
Oh, we got a Cap C again.
Got him?
Watch up there. This guy.
Oh, sheet.
Guy right there.
Freak.
There, yeah, got him.
Good job.
Alright, we got a Cap C, boys. And
I have faith in you, August.
Thanks.
that makes one of us.
Oh,
Quit.
Oh, God.
It's toxic.
I don't know why I threw that.
Friendly UAV on station.
I've been tear gassed.
I hear footsteps everywhere.
No.
And no, it's called your own player, your own team. You know there's a guy behind you
around
guys,
me.
right? Oh,
Talking to me?
and everybody.
There's a guy
So
behind
let's
us.
party with us.
Ah!
Who wants to parlay? Alright,
Taking Alpha.
capturing Charlie.
Stupid. Guy stepped out with like low health.
Got a UAV.
UAV on station. We lost Alpha.
Oh fuck.
Putting in that objective work. What's up,
I'm
baby?
gonna cap Alpha. That's hard to spawn.
He got around us though.
They're not even spawning there.
Doesn't matter.
Oh, I saw that ladder and instantly knew he was up there.
We're losing speed. Friendly support
Bro,
here.
that man Panini had wrecked 3 people with a shotty.
We lost Charlie.
He only
Nice.
has 2 bullets. I don't understand that.
UAV on station.
That spread fire.
Must have been.
Damn, I couldn't get two.
I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna get him when he comes to you.
Oh, you saw where I died?
Yeah. Got him.
Ah, this place is called the Market, huh? Well, he's in the building in the market. Ground level.
I didn't get anybody with that.
We got a nice little lead.
Bro, I'm about to get a VTOL.
Oh, you can grenade with that too? Hell yeah.
Grenade of what?
Skirt. Middle mouse button.
Dominating the enemy.
Oh yeah.
We're halfway there. Keep fighting. Friendly chopper gunner on the way.
Oh my god.
Like a salamander.
I'm making fun of me.
It's stupid. Oh god. Is that their kill streak?
Yeah, it's ours.
Oh, it's ours.
Panini
Okay.
head
yeah.
was going in apparently.
Someone's capping this shit and I don't know who it is.
Alright, alright.
Oh my god.
I can't kill anybody if you're just blowing everything up.
You gotta stand in the middle of everything if you want to capture this point.
Yes. It's amazing, right?
Enemy UAV.
Oh, I thought I
We
made it.
got all 3.
Yep.
Hell yeah, we do.
I'm wrecking right now.
Aussie
It's
boys.
freaking amazing.
Enemies capturing C.
Enemy at the back alley.
Back alley?
Alley.
It's on the left side. Back at A.
We lost
Back at
Charlie.
A? Alright, well I'm capped. Oh my god.
Where is
Yeah,
it?
just
underneath
face
you, Shane.
south.
Right underneath you, got a shotty.
Back alley.
Electronics store.
Yeah, this is back alley.
Okay.
Wouldn't run down the middle of that. Just guess not anymore. They're not over
I'm
here.
finna. I was born for danger, baby.
Securing Charlie.
Born to lose.
Losing A.
I don't want to die. I
We
need a
hold two
VTOL.
objectives. We're dominating the enemy.
Enemy at the cafe.
We lost A.
Ah, one more.
You can hear the music playing. Why can I not find anybody? You guys killing them all before I can make it?
I
there?
think there's only like 2 people left. Everybody must have quit.
Yeah, I just killed one of them. There's only 2 people? Shit.
Damn, big quitter day.
We're holding two. We have the
Right.
advantage. Securing Alpha.
Great, that did absolutely nothing.
Securing A. We're dominating the enemy.
VTOL!
2 people.
VTOL jet on
Oh,
station.
I'll have to, like,
corner building.
Yeah.
In the green wall building. Literally camping with an Olympia.
That is.
Being a turd.
That's us, yeah.
This is our fight. Stay focused. We don't return.
No!
He's camping in his building.
Just shoddy. Oh, loser!
Deployment.
Got him. Personal radar available. Oh, we won!
Oh, that was lame.
Uh,
Got the beat down on that one.
That was
Panini head went off.
like 2 people.
Okay. Look, bam! Oh my god, what a monster!
He must have that quick reload.
That was hella quick.
Yeah, I only died once. Whee! Oh man.
Could have sworn I got more than 8 kills.
Yeah, man.
Alright, dude, I don't know what the hell's going on here, but I keep getting encoder errors. Like my stream just stopped.
It's gotta be the game, bro. I can't.
You run
Huh?
OBS and administrative? Yeah.
Do you have to run OBS and administrative for that to go away?
It's the best way to go because what could be happening is that your OBS is trying to run and your computer is seeing it. It's taking your game over. Your game has priority. Your OBS doesn't.
Right.
So it's going to take the game over your OBS. But if you run as administrative, it takes your OBS as priority and your game is secondary. So that should kind of fix that problem.
Interesting.
It's like one of the many solutions to your cause. Because for all I know, if your OBS is crashing, maybe you're running at. Yeah, that's the only thing I can think about. Is because your OBS uses your CPU and your graphics. So if the computer's having your OBS shut down, then that means your graphics are running too high on your game. And the better way to balance that is bring your OBS up. Administrative.
Cool.
By the administration powers, I will call forth the enemy in the night.
Fucking nerd.
Hoot and holler. Hoot and holler and a half.
An hour and a half.
Bro, we're not in a lobby together?
Are we not? No,
Oh,
we
we
are.
are.
Use your
Almost
eyes,
left.
child. Oh god.
It's
Oh god.
just
Oh god.
about-
Oh god.
Use your eyes.
I gotta put a side on. I gotta put a side on.
I have salamander eyes.
Salamander eyes. No, I don't want the scout. I want a reflex sight. Hell yeah.
Damn, you almost missed it again.
Almost, dude.
For like 5 seconds.
Can't catch me twice.
I
I have no idea what I just put onto my gun. I just put like 4 things on.
Oh my god, it's 4:30.
I just had an encoder air gun.
Yeah.
Some yogurt. Yeah. And a place to go.
That's me playing my sound effect.
Oh god, I think I put a noob tube on my gun.
Bro, just shoot it immediately into the other spawns. Not the whole thing.
How do you use it?
Domination.
Left, probably,
You-
you're on.
Freak. It's your D directional. Your D-pad.
We've got control.
Your directional
He's on,
pad?
he's on a computer
keyboard.
mouse. Yeah.
Oh.
Computer
Yeah.
mouse, keyboard mouse.
I thought he switched to
No, I
controller.
Because he's a loser.
Hell yeah, I did not mean to do that. Oh, this is lit.
Dude, trying to shoot me, man. My own teammates.
Oh man, I was just about to say I'm doing hella good with this fucking
Yes.
sight.
Capture assist. Okay over here?
Oh my god, we have all three.
Yep.
I love this spot. Let them have C. It's fine.
C's the best spot.
Charlie, stand by.
All the funny shit happens over
It's
there.
right here.
What's up?
We just got a jar B.
Dominating the enemy. Enemy personal radar online. Enemy at the train track.
We're not playing objectively, or
Yeah.
I mean, we were.
Their teammates could do it. Just watch them die in front of us.
I'm talking about their team. Oh my god.
Oh.
No, they're just going for kills, I guess. Alright.
They're taking Charlie.
Works for me.
Taking Charlie now.
Oh my god, where did you come from?
Damn.
Your worst nightmares. Batman and your night.
We're really good.
Oh, so they're actually coming back.
Oh. Yeah, they're making a comeback. I should got a kill for that. I threw a freaking grenade. And there was like two of them next to each other. One, might have one of them. Next to one of them.
Oh god, I just did a backflip.
Nice.
Oh my god!
Okay. Alright, big objective day, boys. Going for C.
Bro,
Actually, check
what?
Oh,
Maybe.
fuck.
What's going on?
Gotta learn how to back up.
Damn, we gotta get our points back.
Securing Bravo. Enemy personal radar online.
Oh, fuck. They got a personal radar.
Oh, come on.
Watch your 6.
Emergency effort. We captured Bravo.
Don't go in that building. Trap.
I keep forgetting I slide instead of going to prone when I do that.
Oh, you're freaking kidding me. I saw him first. Oh, great. I spawned at C. This guy on top of the building, so watch yourselves.
Enemy shield turret spotted. Enemies have Alpha. Securing Charlie.
I'm gonna came.
We've got Charlie. You're needed at B.
Oh god.
Friendly UAV online.
What's over here? Oh,
They're
it's
all on the
care
opposite side of the
package?
map.
Yeah, they fucking switched the spawn somehow. Oh my god!
The spawn switches throughout the game, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Two objectives secure. Friendly care package inbound.
Nice. It's 8 UAV.
Hell is he?
Oh, you
Whenever
freaking
the
kidding
spawn's
me.
being like switched to when you get in proximity. That doesn't make any sense just to randomly switch them.
No, you spawn. Yeah, they switch them like partway through the game, and if there's like a lot of deaths on the team.
So stupid.
Radar online.
Oh,
It's
no.
supposed to be like the game changer, kind of help people bring back, I guess.
Should just be good.
Just be
Right.
good.
Be good.
Trying to make it easier for
Damn,
them
I'm
if
not
they
very
suck. I
hot.
guess.
Playing objective though.
Yeah, pretty much. And sometimes it gets difficult because sometimes people camp in the area, and you have to. If they switch spawns, then you spawn behind them and kill them. Ah, are you kidding me?
Ooh, fuck me.
Allied cluster strike inbound. Friendly precision airstrike on the way.
What? Not a single.
So he's almost dead. There's one alpha,
They flipped again.
at least. Considering that's probably their spawn right now.
Not anymore.
Oh,
We're back at C now.
Tiger hidden infantryman.
Let's take.
Oh crap!
Alright.
Yeah, they're coming from C,
What
guys.
the hell is that little tank?
It's fucking
It's,
people.
uh,
up, though.
Yeah,
Modern
it's-
Warfare.
It's another one of your little. What do you call them? Kill streaks?
They're going for B right now.
It's like an
Are
RCXD,
they?
but on steroids.
Fuck, they're
Alright,
just
someone's
camping.
in the
bro.
bathroom.
Oh my
Bathroom
god,
building.
garbage.
Yeah, the bathroom. Watch the bathroom. They said something sooner.
Ah, they're coming behind you guys.
Behind
I got a double kill.
Yeah, Rafa.
Sorry.
It's a trap.
It's a trap.
Oh no.
When did I switch to this? Stuff. Must have accidentally hit my. Changed my loadout on accident. Oh, I'm fucking dead. Oh, never mind. Alright.
Charlie.
That's what happens when you fuck with the freaking sniper gun. You get
Fuck me.
Allied cruise missile away.
Damn, he just popping weaseled me.
Friendly care package inbound.
Damn, he just jump shotted.
What the hell's Wizzle,
Got
dude?
me, boy.
Hey Ken, what's going on? I'm excited you're on early. I appreciate it, man. I'm not paying attention to chat. I apologize. What's going on, Ken? Ken.
Damn, I wish I had viewers right now.
Oh, these guys are awesome. Ah, freak! This guy doesn't have a sight on us, unless you call iron sight.
Securing Charlie.
Ah, I got assist for that. Sweet.
Alpha side of Charlie.
Ken.
Take an A.
Oh, what the-
We've lost Alpha.
Fuck me.
Securing Charlie. We've got Charlie.
That's cool. I can't grab up and grab it.
Personal
It's
radar
cool.
online.
Not salty about it.
Time is it anyways? 5:37.
We're crushing them. Stay with it.
Win enement. Enemente.
Oh my god, he would be. This man's always ducking down.
They're taking Bravo. Two objectives secured.
Ken streaming right now?
Ooh.
Yo, whatever happened to PK Olsen?
All in a good day's work.
PKs. He's doing fine. He dropped out of school. I'm good. It's good to see you, Ken. How's it been, man?
Jesus, massacre.
Jeez. Oh my god.
Holy crap, dude. What? Save some pussy for the rest of it.
We're gonna die.
What a monster.
What a monster.
Absolute animal.
Yes, relax.
Who's
My
texting?
god, my fucking stream crashed again.
Sorry. So administrative didn't work for you?
Oh, hey, mine
Well,
didn't crash.
this
Mine
is
just
an error
crashed as soon as
occurred.
I launched it.
With the output. This is usually caused by out of date video drivers.
Ooh. Might have to check that.
Damn.
No way though. I
Frick.
just checked my NVIDIA drivers today. Makes no sense.
My shit hasn't crashed in 10 minutes. I'm feeling accomplished.
Push.
up?
Oh, we swapped the computer. What's up, Ken? I'm sick of dying, dude. It's going good, man. Just sneezing my brains out, apparently.
Same thing.
Dude. Yeah, just getting all caught in
Coder.
early in the morning because my buddy Zenith is on. So it's like, yeah, why not? I went to bed like super early for me, which was like around 7. Then Sam gets up, my
That's
girlfriend.
Same exact video drive. It's the same exact driver I have right.
Is your game crashing or your stream crashing?
My
Or
stream's
both?
crashing. So it can't be my. Well,
I'll figure this out.
If your game's fine, I would either check your download of Streamlabs.
I'm going straight to B. You guys want to help me out?
Yeah, I'm coming to B. But yeah, I would check your download of Streamlabs.
What about it? Oh my.
You got first blood. Nice.
Like the most recent one.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to reload.
Was that you or someone else?
That was not me.
Just set that off. Oh, that was not. I thought that was our own teammate's Claymore. Oh, dude. He just literally walked by me and I didn't see him. He's in the cave with you. So you guys is left. You guys run?
Jesus.
Oh, freak. You got me in the head. Ken, dude, I'm doing good, man. I should probably put myself on push to talk, so you guys don't have to worry about me talking.
I'm not streaming right now. My stream crashed.
Oof.
Me neither.
I think I'm probably gonna either go back to Tarkov or play something else. Or just keep playing this and not stream for a little bit.
Wow, TTTV, dude.
Can you update that shit from your app?
Update what?
Streamlabs.
I don't know. I never messed with Streamlabs OBS.
Should automatically update all the time. It should automatically update all the time. That.
I don't know what else I could do then.
How about your? You say your game driver is up to date?
Yeah, I have NVIDIA.
Just gonna have to Google search it. They're in the cavern right now. Let's see. I feel free to talk. Ken, things have been good, dude. Just up early. I was at the Corgo Park. I think you missed it. I think you were doing some stuff. Ooh, crap behind. They're back at A. Can you guys still hear me talking?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Why is that? I put me on push to talk. Yeah, I guess you guys should just listen to me talk. Back at Charlie.
Yeah. Alpha's good to cap.
Sweet, got Charlie. Nice. Now, if you can just get Bravo without dying, that'd be great. And that recoil might go. Just watch out where Alpha direction is. They're probably gonna come smack us from both sides.
Yep. Ty, right to the to your right, to your right. He's camping up
To my
on the
right?
ledge. Yeah.
Ah, oh, I see him now. Sorry, that was my fault. I should have scoped it out. blended in really well too.
God damn you. God damn.
You okay? Happened.
No, I was just fucking around at the cave entrance.
We have hostiles have Charlie.
I'm heading to Charlie. Never mind.
After you die.
Enemy UAV overhead.
Alright, I'm at Alpha.
Taking Alpha.
Yeah, I am too.
Enemy personal radar in the air. We control A. You're needed at Bravo.
I think they're at the cave entrance of Alpha.
Oh god.
Nice. But that guy.
Fuck.
Enemy's halfway there. Step it up.
I mean, frick.
Your microphone and game audio are extremely low, buddy. I got you on 100% and can barely hear me. Alright, I'll fix it in a second, Ken. Go start yelling into the...
Missile incoming.
Oh,
Oh.
that was a bit extreme, bud.
Take them back.
Hostiles in the area.
Right. Hope this helps out. I don't... Yeah, this should help out, hopefully. It might be too loud, to be honest. But better too loud than too quiet, right? Let me know, Ken, to help out.
Losing B.
Oh, frick me in the booty hole.
Ken, just let me know, man. I thought I saw somebody. So I shot a rock instead. The rock did it to me. He deserves. I need revenge.
Oh god.
Holding two. We have the advantage.
How, dude? How is he already shooting?
Oh, freaking snacker. Snap a pop a rock. I know someone shot me, so where are they now?
Young.
There they are. Got him. I'm not stupid. I'm not
dead.
feeling things or seeing things. Someone saved my life. Oh, it was you. Zenith.
I don't think I've saved anyone's life.
No, you saved my life. You shot that guy that was like right below me. So I didn't see him.
Shot my gun at anything in the last like 10 minutes.
Oh, then maybe it was August
Probably.
What?
that you shot someone right below.
I'm not in your guys' game.
Whatever. What?
Oh, you're not in a game?
No, I'm not in the game. I'm looking this.
Oh.
He went straight to storage mode.
Or they're all saying just like clean install your drivers, but then people below are saying you haven't done that.
Yeah.
That didn't work either. That didn't work either.
Overhead.
How are fucking other people streaming this shit?
Enemy controls two objectives. Take them back.
I don't know. What do you got for specs right now?
Freaking that's brand new shit. I literally just built.
Because I got a 1080 GPU, and I'm not having any issues.
Like streaming.
Yeah, no issue streaming. It's good. I had at first, I had a lot of frame stutter, but I dropped my resolution and I dropped my frame rate from 300 to 250, and then I did my menu and my what's the other option to give you? The like 35 frames per minute. Unfortunately, might just have to play with stuff. Oh, I just ranked up. Ken, dude, let me know if this is loud enough. Do I need to go louder?
And my GPU is a 280.
280? Yeah, you shouldn't have an issue then. You should have a better luck than I am.
Right.
So, yeah, my only thoughts would be the same thing. Try to uninstall and install drivers. It's like not everyone's lovely idea. Ah, man, they're all at C right now. Zenith.
Yeah, I got one at Alpha. Oh shit. Oh my god, he Allahu Akbar'd me.
And they came back hard. We were doing pretty decent, but
Yeah, they did.
I'm gonna blame August. He left. It's his fault.
Yeah.
You got blown up by a Claymore. Oh, buddy. Not that you could have seen it coming, you know?
Alright.
Ooh, I ranked up. Nice.
About per sec. Maybe play some Minecraft or take a break for something.
That's fine. I hate it because Kenken showed up and was like, bro. Who am I in? Okay. It kicked me all the way out. Multiplayer. And something happens.
Excuse me.
You guys jinxed me now. Yeah. COD issues. You won't let me into multiplayer or campaign or co-op.
Yeah, it fucking did that to me today.
Well, let's see. Let's see. Make sure it's fine.
How do you uninstall this shit?
COD or
No, fucking
your drivers. You got NVIDIA by any chance?
Yeah,
Or you do? Okay. You can try to go into your NVIDIA experience and using that, or you can just go into your control panel, go to programs, uninstall, and try to find it from there.
I'm in the GeForce Experience.
You are? You can't find it in there? Then I would go to the control panel, man. You think they would make it easy, but no.
Right.
I have to make sure this is good. And all of these overlays. Okay. It fixed it. Yay! Alright. Let's watch. When does this unlock? Let's see. What's new? What? Nope. Go back. Yes. Let's see. Filter. Yeah, this game still has lots of issues. Unfortunately. Let's see. Check weapons real quick. I'm only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scopes away. Let's see. Go custom. What do I got for paint? I got Dank Forest. Yeah, see now COD's not been loading up my weapon, so I can't even see it. Gonna have to assume that's there.
Alright, I'm restarting.
Cool. Okay, so kills while your gun is using all attachment slots. Ooh, that's gonna be easy. I'll unlock all these already. Just need to get the kills. Red Tiger. Stripes is at 56. I don't know. What am I gonna do with myself? Alright. See. Kill streaks kills counts towards your next kill streaks. Only applies to kill streaks earned this life. How does that work? Cannot kill chain with kill streaks from other players. Care package, kill chain, kills don't help earn nukes. So kill streak kills count towards your next kill streaks. But only applies to kill streaks earned this life. What do you mean this life? Do you mean you die and then your kill streak goes away? Or what? Alright, makes no sense. Spotter. Build upgrades and kill streaks through walls. Mark them for your team by aiming downside. That'd be amazing. I have like 4 more levels before that unlocks. That's 42. Do 1. Eat. That sucks. Oh my god, jeez. This game doesn't make anything fair. I'm going to get the homework. Let's see. Disco Inferno, burn, baby, burn. Oh, dude. Zenith. I mean, John. John. Did you leave? No, I can hear him thumping. Burn, baby, burn. Yep, there you go. The beautiful face there. You are. Never gonna give you up. Never let you down. Hey, John. Oh. Hey, you hear me? Alright. I'm by myself, guys. We're gonna do some homework. That's what we're down today. Some homework. Keep me on track, right, guys? Can't believe this is happening. Put some music on. Some wonderful, wonderful music. And I in Tokyo Hotel. This is how I get distracted from homework. YouTube be throwing stuff at me, and I'll be like, yeah. Look away, look away. Let's put my password in. Ooh, interesting. Let's do this one. That is so loud in my ears. Oh yeah. What a wonderful life. Yeah. What a wonderful life. I don't know, dude. Ken, dude. How's life been, man? Putting on some relaxing stuff. Kinkin, I wonder if you're on, bro. You streaming right now? No? Thought you would be, man. Do do do. I might have to pause it. Iceman ASU. Yeah, dude. It's college. It's life. Can you hear me okay? No, not the main campus. I'm doing all online. So, about to watch me watch this video on expected value, dude. Yeah, man. Is it Polytech then online? Okay. Yeah, they almost sent me to Polytech. I was about to end up driving all the way to Mesa, which would have been like a 45-50 minute drive for me, which I was gonna do. So I was like, I'm going online because the degree that I want is the engineering management degree, and they only do that at Polytech campus. So I was like, I don't want to go to drive to Mesa for it. So wait, you lived in Mesa for a bit? That's pretty dope. The Polytech campus or Mesa? You live 30 minutes away? I could do 30 minutes.
Expected value is basically a long-term average, or what you can expect based on probability
Both.
and
Both. Yeah, I think Polytech looked pretty cool. I saw the pictures online, but I was like, I would do a 45 or 50 minute drive because I would literally reach there, I would spend all my time on the campus, and then leave. Yeah, I'm out in Goodyear. So, it's out. It's out there for me.
Winnings and losing, losses, average together, how much money we make.
Ooh, dude.
So that's the kind of thing that the expected value is.
Oh.
Formula for expected value, and I'm gonna do this formula, but
Yeah, man, I have to add you to the Discord.
look at this that you
So,
don't have
you
to
can pop in there and say hi and stuff.
set up.
I'm like super happy my girlfriend helped me set it up pretty much. Sam's been awesome.
Probability of one outcome.
I already follow you on Twitter, so I got you there.
Probability of the next times outcome times the value of that outcome.
Ooh, and it's been super exciting.
Personally,
Nothing like yours. You have so many commands. It's not even funny.
and I have in my table
And man named Stan. What's up, Quad Banger? What's going on, man? Not much. Just doing some homework, or at least trying to do some homework. So,
and then I have their probability.
you know, man named Stan. I'm so done with you, Quad.
So probability 1, that times value 1, probability 2 times value
Yeah, that labyrinth looked like it sucked. I
probability
don't even know how you got out of that labyrinth. Oh, it died.
and that would give me my expected.
I gotta catch Ken stream, but he's always up like super early.
Sometimes it helps you organize yourself so you don't
At every second of it. I bet you did. But was it as scary as walking through the house? I feel like walking through the house would be 10 times scary. Watch the part of the void back and the look on your face.
1,000 kids across
This is bad. I have to go check it out.
grand prize.
So impatient.
2 other tickets.
Oh.
$50 consolation prize. Each one will get $50. What
Yeah, like I said, I'm just doing homework. At least trying to. So, I'm happy I caught you guys. It's a good time. Serious. Like, don't even care about homework at the moment because I'm just happy you guys stopped in. And I want to try Visage. I'm not a horror guy. I do not like horror games, but it looks good. A guy named Kent. It's funny you do that though, because I have one of my viewers, he's in Discord, he changed his name from Equal to a guy named Equaled. I was like, alright. This is your new thing. You should totally do that. You should be like, if it's a chick, a gal name, like Sky or something. Every time someone shows up. And I'm just gonna have to work for the Quad Banger and be like, yo, Quad, like, take this viewer. I need you to make something funny out of it. You gotta be a guy. A dog named Maple. He's sleeping right now. Oh, yeah, he's in the bedroom.
is
I found that some good cafe music is amazing. Usually I like the cafe sound in the back. I don't know about you. Maple is cool as fuck. I wish you guys could have been on earlier because I was really having fun. You have to go and check out the video on the park because we went to a Korga Halloween and the Korga Halloween was amazing. There was so many different corgis. It was a god named God.
What else can happen?
A god named God. Oh man, I'm just so done. I'm gonna show up on your stream and I hope I'm gonna just go like, God named Quad, what's up, bro? And everyone else is like, what? You just messed up Quad Banger's name, man.
What you think of Salute?
Yeah, your name's yeah, I got points and stuff set up so you can use points. But yeah, I'm all excited. Those commands, trying to figure out how to get everything to work without having to redeem them from the store was crazy. It's looking good. Thanks, man. Yeah. Let's see if the lasers will actually work. Alright, man. I'll catch your stream, dude. Hearts. And a Quad's probably heading to work. Aw, thanks, man. Nah, Tyler, I'll get it. I'm gonna be doing as many people as I can today. Yeah. Do it. Do it. Hey, boss name Bob! Seriously. Hey, watch the reaction. They'll be done. Thanks, man. Oh, I appreciate it, Ken. I'll have to hit you up maybe with some stuff and see. I know, right now I'm just trying to get my overlays to be consistent and work on my transitions, which I had a stinger for it, but it was super loud. Oh, your Quad's at work. So, you don't do a lot. What do you do for work, Quad? I haven't even had a chance to ask you. I feel like this is question and answer time with Quad instead of come talk to Ty. Watch him stream. Cause he's just full of smiles and giggles right now.
Now, the value. This
I think my headset's dying though.
end up with from each outcome. Well, if I win the grand
Do you have a boss at your work? That's the question, Quad.
it cost me $2 to play to get the ticket. So I'm only ahead by how much?
Man.
Well, 1,000 minus 2 or
Yeah, am I the only one that I will watch these videos at like twice the speed?
consolation
But
prize,
I won't do it because some people get anxiety.
$50.
My girlfriend gets lots of anxiety when I speed it up. I'll put on like 1 times 5, 1.5 speed, or I'll put it on 2 speed depending how I'm feeling.
Ahead by that much money.
I will literally just sit there and just go right at it.
Any money.
You're a coffee trainer, but they're not putting anything in my diary this week.
Buy the ticket in the first place. So I am out by $2.
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Behind, I've lost this
I'm
money.
a coffee trainer, but they've not put anything in my diary this week. I have a boss to speak to her once a month.
1,000
You
tickets.
train people to make coffee?
One of them.
Is that what you're telling me?
So the probability of winning the grand prize.
And they don't put anything in your diary.
What about the consolation prize?
It means schedule instead of diary.
Two
That's a hell of a diary if they
possibilities.
put any things in there for you.
1,000. How many tickets are going to be losers?
This would be like the asshole named
996.
Jerry.
So the probability of
Just watch people's faces drop.
97.
I'm probably not gonna be able to do this.
So now that
Probably better off going into the actual homework. You drive around and do it? Nice. I wish that was a job I could really get into. I used to be a Lyft and Uber driver. That was awesome. That was the best. I would just talk to people. Just enjoy it. Could never go wrong. Oh, you call it your diary? Okay. That makes sense now. I was like so confused. I'm like, that's not what diary means for me. Schedule. Damn quad. You gotta write in your diary more often, man. Come on. But I don't know. How do you like being a coffee trainer? Training people how to make coffee. You see some funny stuff? Because I don't know if you know TikTok. TikTok brings up some of the funniest stories about being at Starbucks or something. Because people are becoming demanding stuff all the time. Let's see, Digilus is a technology company that makes high-end computer processors. Their newest processor, Loot A, is going to be sold directly to the public. The processor is to be sold for $5,400, making Digilus a profit of $594. Unfortunately, there was a manufacturing flaw. Some of these Loot A processors are defective and cannot be repaired. On these defective processors, Digilus is going to give a customer a full refund. Suppose for each Loot A, there's a 13% chance that it's defective and 80 cents per chance it's not defective. It's surprisingly more boring than you think. I mean, it's coffee. Like well, I mean, never mind, I should stop myself. It probably can get pretty complicated. How long have you been working? Oh, it's quiet this time of the year? Yes. It's fun when you have stuff to do, but it's quiet this time. Anyway, I gotta move, so I'll catch you later. Alright, bye, Quad. Thanks for stopping in. It means a lot to me. Yeah, it's just happy. I have to stop in more and come see your stream. Freaking bets are hilarious, dude. So, enjoy. Have a good one. Be safe. Catch you later, man. The Digilus. You can watch me play COD another time. Digilus knows it will sell many of these processors. Should expect to make or lose money for selling them. How much? The question. The question, sir, is how much will they make? I'm gonna have to plug my headphone in. 'Cause it's beeping at me. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I need the time. I need to stream. Trying to plug this in. Plugging this in is no bueno. Senior Fritas. That should not work that way. Alright, well, we're on the road again. The hard we shall go. See, Digilus knows that it will sell many of these processors. Should expect to make or lose money from selling them. How much? So the price would be $4,400. Makes a profit $594. It's not a huge profit. That's ooh, jeez, man. Suppose there's a 32% chance it is defective and 87% chance it's not defective. So, okay. The answer take into account the profit earned on each processor and expected value of the amount refunded due to the processor being defective. Amount refunded to how much do they refund? Do they refund the whole price? That's the question. That's always the question. Oh baby. Alright, I gotta pull up my notebook because I'm starting to space out. I keep track of my own thoughts. This ADHD got me hard. Hard in the gut. Oops. Alright. I wonder if I would catch anybody else on today. It's all my amazing notes. All these right here. Firing my lasers. Don't forget that. You guys gotta keep yourself on the D-low. Ah, man, I feel like I just got hit by a drunk bus right now. Alright, let's try to make it through this. Gotta check. Oh, I forgot something. That's fine. What is that noise? Weird. It just rattling for a second. Oh. Oh. Okay. Oh, man. Life as you know it. It's full of unexpected consequences. And headphones dying, apparently. Because apparently headphones can die. Headphones dying. Gotta be crying. To live your life as full as possible. Ooh, why is this stuck like that? Stop being stuck. Don't be sticking on my. A guy named Claude. Digitalis. Well, so many of those processors should expect to make or lose money, so Digitalis can expect to make money from some of these processors. I would assume yes, because if there's only 80%, there's only 13% of them being done. I'm just gonna have to go to explanations, because about 2-year warranty, and then my brain's only semi-functioning right now. I don't even think I've even been streaming that long. I think maybe it's only been like half hour. Sorry, I gotta check. My brain is everywhere but homework right now. Yeah, I've only been up an hour and 39 minutes. That's not much. That's pretty weak, to be honest. But that might be my stream like this for now. I'm gonna have to get Baptismo out. Baptismo. Oh, that's right. I gotta get rid of those bots too. Take up the leaderboard. They're always watching. Freak. Here we go. There you go. I'm on Twitch. I don't mind him being a moderator for someone on Mixer just messaged me. So weird. Mob crashes suck a lot of the time, dude. Okay, so we're gonna go back to what we were doing. I'm going to switch this to cafe music because I think I'm gonna fall asleep just listening to this. I really thought it was going to be better, much better. Guys, you can't look at my history. Look away. I don't want to do the walking through. There we go. This is the one I liked a lot. This is good. This is the good stuff. The nomadic ambiance. Hear my voice. Speak and be let everything be known. Moto Wind has a chance to replace the car one time under warranty. This costs them $1,200. Results. Moto Wind doesn't have to replace the car that costs them $0. We need to find the expected value of cost from replacing the car, which is, I mean, we already knew that. So we're literally just using this formula right here. So the expected value of cost to replace the car is given by this formula. Expected value formula. So I don't forget this. E equals E x1 P1 plus x2 P2. Should probably put this in my notes area instead of writing it on some random page, so I don't forget. I'm saying everything out loud because honestly, this just helps me focus thoughts maybe a little bit more, and then you guys know what I'm doing instead of just sitting in front of an open screen. Yeah, I know. Isn't it amazing? This life. Oh, I don't know what I did with my notes page. Am I probability rate and problem set sitting right here, but I don't know where my notes are. Well, you can't find your notes, you know. Never mind, I think I found them. Page them together. I'm gonna have to do something. I'll just write notes at the top of my page here. So my notes are just as disorganized as my mind. Isn't that amazing? I think it'll take me by December, maybe my birthday, and then I'll become an affiliate. That would be crazy. I have so many crazy ideas, guys. I can't wait to do them. So we know the expected value formula is E equals x1 P1 plus x2 P2. So probability x the cost. So x is the cost, P is the probability or the percentage. So they're two different events. So we know event 1 is they have to replace it. Event 2 is having to not replace it at all, and they make money off of it. So we're going to take both of those events. We're going to plug them in, plug the numbers in. So, ooh, you know, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. That's how they look at it. Learning finance, guys. I'm learning finance. I'm learning financial math right now. This is good stuff. It's good to know. Once I finish this homework, I'm going to just go. Oh, this is probability practice. Eep. I thought this was more than that. Cause I have more stuff to do today than just that. Let's see what we got. We got. I thought it was supposed to be expected value, less than 2.4. Not probability practice 2. And then complete after 2.3 and 2.4. Okay, so I have to do a bunch of stuff today. And then tomorrow's exam, probability exam review, and then exam probability. Okay. And then overview data, measures center tendencies. So only one exam this week. Okay, I'll take it. This is problem solving set. It's gonna be a pain in the butt like it usually is. So I'll take it. But hopefully I can keep my head straight. So hold on. So should expect to incur 976 costs on each warranty sold. We also know Moto Wind is thinking about selling a warranty for $993. So find the amount of money Moto Wind should expect to make or lose in the long run out of each warranty sold. We take the price and subtract the expected cost. This is positive, so in the long run, Moto Wind should expect to make $17 on each warranty sold. Okay. Let's see. So warranty cost them. Okay, they're doing warranty. Sorry, that almost threw me off. They also was trying to sell a warranty for $9.93, but we already knew that. Oh, it's the percentage. 32% would be they had to replace. They wouldn't have to replace it. 8% chance they have to replace a car. So cars replacement, and then trying to figure out how they got $9.93 from. Oh, that's the limited warranty. Yeah. I just want to make sure I'm on the same page with this. I feel like I already did all this, but my brain's saying no, it's not. I haven't done it, and it should be probability of practice. It should be something else. I don't know. All right. Well, anyways, it might be because sometimes if you test into the class, you have to test into the class, and the class kind of tells Alex like where you need to be at. And so far, I was already at this, so it's just part of my practicing, which is nice. So we are going to find out that 13%, 87%. So we're gonna plug. We're gonna take the formula. We're gonna take E equals. So our expected value. So the first event is this event is the processor served sold 5400. And then it's gonna be times, what is it? Wait, hold on. We know the first event. We know what profit they make off of it. So if they replace it, they get a full refund of 5400. So that's a 13% defective ones. So we're going to change it to a decimal, and then you want to add it to the second event, which is they make profit off of it, which is going to be 594 times the second one, which is going to be your... No, I didn't change the game. My bad. I'm still on COD. I'm not even on just chatting right now. Oh, my headache. Just kidding. No headache here, guys. Doing fine. Just chatting. I hope this changes it. I'm gonna lose. So broadcast info was saved successfully. Does that mean that they actually changed the title on all these? Because that would be amazing. If it actually works for once, I might have to reset it manually. Alright. Let's go. Oh, you know what I can do? So I don't have it here. I would have to open it up. I think my computer froze. That's weird. Yeah, I get it. Let's Fortnite. No. Yeah, it's Fortnite. Oh, no. Clicked the wrong thing. Go back. Go back. Was it ready? Can't believe I missed it. Alright, let's try this. I'm gonna set these all. Set game. And then just chatting. Hey, what's up, John? What's going on, man? What are you up to? Just trying to change my thing right here. I'm just working on homework. It's, you know, that's important. You gotta keep playing games, man. Let's see. You know, it's gonna be 80% chance it's not effective, so that's gonna be 0.87. And then we want to figure out the total from that, so I'll show you guys what I'm doing in a second. No, it's not a screen. Woke up with an energy drink in my hand. I'm pretty sure either a nap or a drink didn't do its job. Did you fall asleep? But the nap did the job. Because you're awake. The drink doesn't do its job until you take the nap. That's how it works. That's why I hate energy drinks, because I'll just pass the hell out after them. I used to be good. I used to actually be awake with energy drinks, but not anymore. It's impossible. So this is what I'm doing. I'm working on expected outcomes right now, right? So we're trying to find out if this company's going to make money off of selling. Something's up? What do you mean something's up? What's up? Let's see. I just want to make sure these come out right. So usually I'll store this and then I'll do this. Oh, you flipped your cam? What do you mean I flipped my cam? Oh yeah. You haven't been on stream for a bit, so you didn't notice that I flipped it. So like on the right side here, yeah, you have my stuff in the background, but I have it so I'm looking at my screen instead of looking at the camera the whole entire time. Like, in a sense, I was watching some videos improving your stream. The guy's like, hey, simple camera advice from pros or experienced people. He's like, hey, have it look into the screen instead of to the outside the screen. So when you're actually doing whatever you're doing, people are watching your eyesight instead of, you know. Anyways, you get the point. Anyways, man, I'm surprised you passed out. I was trying to talk to you, and you just, I could hear you breathing, and I could hear the keys going all the time, but you weren't answering. You dude, me too. So thought you were gonna be awake. You seem pretty awake on stream. Or when we're playing COD. Sorry you guys are having issues. I was trying to help. I must be missing something. No, I was struggling. I was crashing. See, clear this. I know I just did that, so we're gonna do 594. You don't know. I'm so mad that I can't help you guys out any better than that. Hope that him resetting things will fix this problem. There you go. So we now they make a profit. They make a profit regardless if it fails on this processor. That's so messed up, man. So technically it's supposed to be a profit of 1218.78 out of the situations. So we're gonna subtract that though by 594, and then it goes here at 624. So they're making money in the wrong run. In the long run, they should expect to make. I hope this came out. Ain't nobody got time for that. Oh, I forgot I had that on. That's my sound effects. Oh shoot. Let's see if this works, guys. No, my answer is wrong. This is my answer is incorrect. So what did they lose money? Did I read this wrong? Oh, that's not what I wanted, man. But well, I can put that up there. Let's see. Dude, I don't understand. I don't know what happens. But you passed out. Kanye is still juicing up your place. So okay, this is what we get. We can divide this. This is expected cost. I'm pretty sure I did this exact thing. This, hold on. Let me make sure I'm reading this right. 3% chance they die before the age of 70, so they have to pay out. So yeah, I'm finding out finance and math class because even though this is not financial class, the only example they have for expected values is financial learning. Financial problems, dude. But guys, welcome. I'm happy that Zenith has stopped in and said hi, and hopefully he's a little bit more awake, Let's see. Am I still on? Am I still on Call of Duty and not just chatting? Because I'd be mad. Clicked on the wrong thing right now. Yeah, switched. Okay, sweet. I just want to make sure I'm accurate with what I'm putting on the screen. It's about that integrity, man. Tell you all about it, right? Let's see. Yeah, my brain's hurting slightly, so I'm just gonna do this all at once. I'm gonna do 54,000 times the 15% plus the 594. You guys can learn a lot from this. A lot. Yeah, that's what it came out to be. So I must not be understanding what they said in the example. My computer just froze over here. So I can't see chat right now. Like, I like Mob Crush, but I don't like Mob Crush. Crush on me. Is that enough? You're gonna continue playing some games, dude, or what are you up to? Let's see. Oh, hold on. I was looking at something and my brain farted. So this is what they got. 484. This is 573. So 573 is it? They're considering offering these policies for 573 each. Oh. So this is what they're selling it for? So I was doing it wrong. I should actually. Here, I'm gonna store this real quick. I'm gonna clear it. That's what I was trying to do. And I'm gonna do the 5400 subtract recall. That should be it, right? So that doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem right at all. Let's put it in anyways. Since it's just practice. Oh wait, hold on. This isn't just practice. This is a normal like learning practice. Hold on. So if I answer wrong too many times, I end up getting a negative score for it. So I better just look at the example again and see if they give us the same one. They give us the same one. No, they give us a different one because it's 938 this time. So find the amount of money agencies should expect to make or lose in the long run on each policy should sold. We take the price and subtract the expected cost. So expected cost of selling everything is the 1218 I got right, which is the 852. and then you want to subtract the. Okay, so that is right. So I was doing it wrong. It boggles my mind. So we're gonna do 4181.2. Dude, John, let me know, man. Beth, what are you doing, man? Let's see, we're gonna recheck this. No, it's wrong. So is how much money they're gonna lose from it? They're not explaining something very well right here. Something's missing that's not bouncing off the top of my head. So they got a limited warranty for $993 on all cars a certain model. Sold to public, the process to be sold for $5,400. We know that's the cost. The profit they're making is $594. So we take the price and to find the amount of money Model Win should expect to make or lose in the long run on each warranty sold. We take the price and subtract the expected cost. So they want to sell it for $993, which we know right here. They're subtracting it by the $976. So did I do something wrong? There must be something I did wrong. I must have calculated it wrong or something. You guys see my mistake? That'd be amazing. It's 5,400 times. So 13%? Yeah, so it's 13%. So 0130, 13 equals 702. We're gonna store this. We're gonna clear this out. And we're going to do 594 times hold on, 0.87. We got, okay, so then we want to add this to this number. I still, what? Did I get, yeah, that's what I got, 1218,878. Oof. You're gonna lose money for selling the processors? In my opinion, like, you're selling for 540 or 5,400, and the Digitus makes only a profit at 594 off of it. So, do I need to calculate that in the price? Because I would normally think so. Because it's the cost of making it crazy. So, I'll come back to this. Under warranties, the second results, 93. Oh, my bad. I was putting a second Adventus. They're making a profit out of it, not a. Oh, that's my bad. So that's why things were making sense, because I was trying to plug in when this should be 0. They don't pay anything out. That's the second event. They're not paying anything out the second event. Got it. Happy to figure that out finally. That's just rough. Rough. Plus, if it's 0, we know we're not paying anything out, right? So there were times in why would we even do this? Why would 702? So we're looking at 702. We're gonna take. I think they actually lose out on this. So let's store this. I'm gonna clear this, and in this case, forgot what happens after this. You want to take the amount. So it was paid 23,600 if they do that, but they're offering the policies for 791. So if I take the 5400. Subtract this 702, right? We get 4698. I hope this is not very realistic. In the long run, they should expect to make blank dollars on each processor. So, it's a hard one. I don't know if I'm right or wrong here. Because example's not completely clear. Let me see if I can get another example real quick before I do this, because this is my last chance. So, they sell a warranty for that. This is what they're telling me. They're selling. So you should be using the price of the product itself that they want to offer it at. So we're not doing the cost. Hold on. Ah, man, this isn't making sense. Let's see. They don't give good examples either. So there's a warranty of 983. Alright, so they're selling it for 983. Yeah, that's why this has to be the answer. Copy. Why can't I paste it here? Oh, whoa. I mean, delete. Delete is whoa. No! Can't forget that's on. My life is nothing but a movie star. You guys ready to get this one wrong? You guys have faith in me? Are you sure? I don't have faith in it either. No. Got it wrong. Oh. Why does that not make any sense? Why do I have to lose money on my practice? I mean, lose. I don't want to do a practice. He said, this is practice. I don't want to practice. Assignments. Okay, let's go see. This is in progress. I did this one, I got an 89%. Doesn't this count as my grade? I feel like practices shouldn't count as your grade, but let's see. Go home. I'm gonna go grades real quick. So I want to see. Do my practice count as my grades? Yeah, see, like it counts as my grade. Practice is supposed to be practice. Why does it even get counted? That's just practice. It's a reason. It's like in this case, they're just small exams. It's a little stressful. Is it unit 3? We're in unit 3 already because didn't we move on? Or are we still in probability? Yeah, we're still in probability. Okay. No, that's not right. I'm wrong. Okay, so expected value. Sometimes they're not really good at explaining things on this. Alright. Profit loss will get to expected. So but this say plus here. So you got 3 outcomes. See, plus K outcomes of experiment. Let's P12, P3, PK. So it would be the probabilities of those outcomes. Then the expected value is found as follows. In the mathematics, the capital Greek letter sigma is used to tell us to add up things that follow. Use this idea, informal but perhaps more palatable form of formula for expecting. toss a coin, it comes up heads. You win $1. If it comes up to tails, you pay me 50 cents. So okay, we get this. We got it. I like remember this, but my brain is just seriously malfunctioning right now. It's really just looking crazy. Probably should just go to sleep. Keep fighting it off right now. Our TV show, you have been asked a dice game. Dice game, guys. Ugh, freaking brass and snapples. This expected value of a toss of this coin is 25 cents. If you roll a 1 or 2, you win 50, but if you roll a 3, you lose 20. You win 20. If you 4 or 5 or 6, you lose 30. Let's make the value of the game once. $5. It's gonna be your best interest to take 100 and not play the game. You're taking a standardized multiple choice exam. Each question has 5 possible answers. Okay. No, 17 and 16. No 6 with guesses. Strange question that's worthwhile to guess when you can eliminate one of the answers choices. That still doesn't really help me with this practice. Ah, man. You guys are killing me right now. It says 108, but I did not get 108 from that situation. There's a 702. It just been subtract 594 from that. Yeah! The whole entire time I should have subtracted 594 instead of 400. 400. Yee. It's freaking crazy. I wish I'd known this sooner. Internet research company surveyed 90 online shoppers, each of whom made one purchase today. The company recorded the type of purchase each shopper made. Here's a summary. 3 shoppers from the survey are selected at random one at a time without replacement. What is the probability that none of those 3 shoppers purchased? Do not round your intermittent computations, guys. Do not round them. It's a trap. A sweet, sweet trap.
Go!
Oh no.
No. It's a trap!
It's a trap.
It's a trap!
There you go. System. Oh. Sweet music in the morning, yes. So you typing all these numbers on accident. Should probably turn this off so I stop driving myself crazy. So God, I had it totally set up like that. Can I just enable effects right now? Turn them off. Alright, just lower them for right now. Just that background noise. You know what I mean, son? Gotta get it. Gotta focus, you know. Focus on the limits, can't get no limits. It's all good, son. Three shoppers surveyor select at random, one at a time without replacement. What's probably that none of these 3 shoppers purchase. Alright, man, I gotta go sleep. I can't do this. Can I do this? I can do this. I know I can. Come on. Wait, this is a struggle. This is a struggle. So we're placing 3 shoppers. So they're picking one. I'm not replacing this. We're not gonna replace. Nobody gets copied here. No copies. Alright. But it's probably that none of these 3 shoppers purchased electronics. None of the 3 shoppers. So we need to know beauty supplies, office supplies, and food. So we're not doing electronics. But we know there's 90 online shoppers and only all the purchases. That was really weird. Really got a real smell, weird smell in my house for a second. Falling apart, guys. Ken left, but I thought he would be streaming. I don't see him on. It's Nick A30.
There's so many ghouls,
Ugh.
man. So many. Yeah.
Action. Homework has been put on pause. Daisy. Grand Theft Auto. Fortnite. World of Warcraft.
Wrath, although we found out yesterday that we're probably not gonna.
And Gynia. So many ways. Hotline Miami. What the heck is Hotline Miami? Warframe. Call of Duty. Modern Warfare. Let's get back to the homework, guys. Either way, it's gotta get done. Electronics 12. So how much longer we're not electronics? So I'm just gonna add them up as 24 plus 21 plus 33 equals 78. So we have 78. Why can't I not just do 78 and then do 3? But they want to know the proper probability. They don't want to know how many combinations. I'm thinking combinations and not thinking about probability. So it'd be more like 78. So crazy. So crazy on a Sunday. I go and I play. Don't mind me, cause I gotta go. Alright, I'm thinking I'm gonna call it. I'm having problems trying to keep my eyes open. It's so annoying. Would it be 78 over the 90 shoppers? So like this. Not around your end. So what's probably, and then there's so 86. It's gonna be 86. Let's round your answer to the nearest 3 decimal places. So let me double check. If I get this one right, I'll keep going with homework. But if I get it wrong, then alright guys, this is my answer. I'm not gonna survive this. My life is not about this right now. Good night. Sleep well. Still alive. Still dead. Everybody don't remember. Bye.